Good news, guys. Mac is back in the shop today. We're gonna add some creature comforts to Mac, make him just a little bit more easy to drive. I mean, he's still raw and simple, but I'm gonna add the turn signal stock and change up some things. I've been driving this car for over a year with no turn signal switch. The turn signal switch is this one right here. That's right, and that's left. And it's been so long, I've actually developed a habit of reaching over here, even in my Mazda. I will reach over here and try to use this switch instead of this one. There's no self-canceling feature. You know, what it's like driving behind someone when they leave their blinker on. It's pretty annoying. It seems like you could just bolt this right up to the steering column and call it good. But because this car is a 1974, yes, it's a backdate, I thought it would be cool to backdate the steering switch too, because I like the simple look of this stock versus the more modern 74 and up. Of course, this is an aftermarket steering wheel and hub, but if I was to put this 73 switch right here, it would fit roughly right there. And you can see there's just a huge distance between the steering wheel and the turn signal stock. That's really too far. Plus, it gets in the way of the key and a few other things. The first thing people do often will look inside here on the steering column, and they'll look at the signal switches or even the wiper switch, and they'll say, oh yeah, this is a backdate. So I want to fool as many people as possible. I'm going to go ahead and switch the whole steering column so that this is going to be pushed up here where it belongs, as it is in the 73 and earlier cars, long wheelbase. This is the correct steering column and switches for the long hood, and you can see how much closer these mounting points are to the actual hub. Now I was going to take my short hood stuff and just move this bracket up, which I probably could have done, but I ended up getting a kind of a good deal on this system, so I'm going to replace it all with factory equipment, and let's see what fits and what doesn't fit. These are the bolts that hold the steering column on, and they have this breakaway feature where that small diameter there shears off when the factory tightens it. They either do that to make sure it's tight, or they do it as a theft deterrent, but I don't care. I'm not easily defeated, so I had to weld on one of these, there's 3 of them, I had to weld this nut onto the bottom of that, and that was welded upside down and inside the car, which is not easy. But the TIG welder doesn't spark or anything, so I got them all out. Now there's 2 more to get the ignition switch out. So the ignition switch, even though the key is here, it has a connector all the way over here for the steering lockout. And so the 2 are connected, so I can't pull the column off without taking the ignition key or ignition switch out. Yeah, I was able to hammer and get the coupling off the far end, but I'm not sure how to get this out of the housing now. I'll have to put the camera down and finagle that through. It's almost out. Now we can compare these side by side and really see the differences. So the shafts here are pretty much identical. There's a foam gasket there. And the interlock for the ignition switch, that's pretty much the same. This one's a little bit more rounded. This one here is a little bit more square, so hopefully the ignition switch is going to go in there. I'm not 100% sure on that. The length of this is totally different, so it's going to move the position of the steering wheel, and it's also going to move the position of the turn signal switches, and this is for the wiper. So it's going to put it back into the original condition for a long hood, which is what I'm trying to emulate. This is the turn signal switch, and it feels a little sticky, and if you look at it, it's just got some old grease built up in there. So what I've done is I've sprayed it with some penetrating oil, and I'm just going in with a toothpick, and I'm just trying to dig out this grease, which is now turned to like a wax. I think we'll put it in the ultrasonic cleaner with a really high heat setting, and that'll sort of melt that waxy stuff out of there and just make it work better, I'm hoping. Nice and clean too. I'm lubricating the lock cylinder with this, it's called Seal Glide. It's a silicone-based lubricant, prevents things from freezing and stuff. So the key is working even better than it did. There was a little bit of sand stuck in that side, so I freed it all up with some penetrating oil and some grease. So this is working better than it did before. This side of the thing here is broken. There's supposed to be like 2 little pins that come out of here, and I don't think I'm going to use that feature. That's probably to remind you left your keys in the car. I don't need that. Yeah, this has to be pushed in, otherwise the key won't turn. This doesn't fit in the new column. Basically, this thing is too tall. I looked at, potentially just selling this one and then buying the correct year. But these things are pretty pricey, and because this one's broken, I'm probably not going to get much money for it. So I think what I'm going to do, and in the interest of time, is I'm going to mill this off and make it fit in the older column. That should work just fine. That way there, I know it's compatible with the 74, and I only have to shave off like 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go that route as opposed to probably losing a couple $100 on some kind of trade. A buy and sell trade would be a couple $100 for me. Just mummifying this so I can just lop off that boss right there. Should be pretty easy. I think I'll start with my bench grinder and then finish with the abrasive disc. I've just ground off quite a bit of that, and it's pretty close to fitting already, even with the tape, so I'm just going to clean it up. So that is not a through hole. That's basically just to allow this grub screw to just dip in there so this switch doesn't back out from the steering lock. So I can go a tad deeper, but not much. So that locks the wheel right there. And then you'll need the key to unlock that. And I kind of oblonged this indent because when this goes in, the hole is a little offset. The hole in the original one was in the middle. This one is off to the side. So I just extended that detent off the part a little bit. This is a smaller screw. I'll have to get a new grub screw for this because this one for the 74 and up is a larger diameter. Okay, I got to describe a problem I just discovered after I got the whole steering column in the car and the switch installed. So what would happen is I would put the key in and turn it, everything was fine. And then I take the key out, the steering wheel locks, I put it back in and it wouldn't turn anymore. And you know, sometimes you have to jiggle the steering wheel to get it to a release. No amount of jiggling would allow me to turn the key. So my ignition was useless. The interlock portion of the shaft has a different depth. The 74 is not as deep where the lock, this pin, goes into the shaft. So I had to put a little sheet metal shim in there and I had to just spot weld it in the ends so that would prevent the plunger from going too deep. If this pin or plunger goes too deep, it locks up the whole lock. You can't turn it anymore. Then I can turn it, it's unlocked. So that shim was all the difference in the world. And you know, I hate doing this because I feel for the next guy who has to, you know, replace the ignition switch or something, and now this is a 74 switch. So, you know, I'll keep my eye out in the swap meets and stuff. If I see the correct switch, this is easy to reverse. I can take the shaft out, remove those shims, put the correct switch in. But for now, this piece is fully functional. But I just wanted to stop and tell that story because this is really typical with backdating. This is the danger a lot of people run into and it causes a lot of frustration. I put a little nut plate on the far side of that so I don't have to have one hand inside the car and one hand inside the trunk. And so that helps me get this tighter. I am missing a little U-shaped bracket on the bottom there. These bolts hold it well enough for now, but I do need to either make or get the correct piece that goes underneath. It's a little saddle. When I get the correct rivets, I will pop rivet them in because you can't get access to the back of that one. And then when I take the key out, this wheel will lock. See right there, it's locked. Now I can put it in, turn it, and it's unlocked. So when I put this switch in here, the temporary one, I did not just hack into the stock wiring harness. I used an extra piece that I had left over from Juan Carlos's car. And that connector there allowed me to, you know, look at the circuit diagrams, figure out which pins go to which part of the switch. So everything now I'm hoping will just plug in and work. Fingers crossed. Nice. I've attached my ground back to the battery now. I'm going to test my turn signal switch, but I've connected it through a very thin jumper lead. That's to protect the wiring harness or switches. If anything goes wrong, I want that wire to be sacrificed and not the factory wiring. Okay, that's the fuel pump. I'm going to turn the fuel pump off or pull the fuel pump relay because that's drawing too much current and it makes a lot of noise. I'm going to try that again. And here we go. Yeah, I hear it blinking. That's the left. That's the right. And of course, you know, this tachometer is temporary. I only have this tachometer in here because it works with the 4-cylinder. I have a 6-cylinder tachometer, and I will be putting that in when I get the 6-cylinder engine in. The thing I miss the most is the indicator for the turn signal is usually right there. Awesome. And then when I turn the key off, these should turn off, which they do. Okay, I got these clamshells, I think they're called, on there. These are used parts, but in really good condition. You know, these are probably from 1970, but no cracks. Everything fits really well. I need to finish tightening that side, close that up a little bit. Let me do that real quick. Okay, I got that screw there tightened. I just put this is for the windshield wipers, and this car doesn't even have windshield wipers, but I just wanted to put the switch in to kind of keep it here, and eventually we'll add windshield wipers, maybe next time. A lot more factory correct. And then for the canceling thing to work, that requires a hub that is a little bit different than the one I currently have. So this hub, being for the newer car, doesn't have the correct protrusion right here. It doesn't protrude deep enough. And I don't know if this will make contact with that or not, but I can't really bolt it on. It's just, this is for a different year. See how that's loose? The hub needs to go and touch that bearing in there. There is a bearing, but the hub's job is to take up that space, keep that thing concentric, and then hopefully the canceling feature will make contact with these pins, like right here, see? Boom. This is not the wheel from my actual 356. This is an extra. So let's see what happens. See, it has the hub that protrudes, and it has the canceling ring. So let's see. Yeah, the splines are right. Okay, it fits perfect. That is exactly how it's supposed to be. Even with the housing, the way the end of the wheel touches the housing, it's actually a remarkably good fit. So this is not the wheel I'm going to keep on here, guys. This is backdating a little too far. I do have 356 mirrors on the car, and I do have like a short wheelbase rear view mirror. I kind of like the older stuff, but this is way too big for the type of car that this is. I did order the correct Momo hub, and that's going to let me use the wheel I had on here before with the correct distance. It'll be about the same height as that. Say I do a left turn. Yeah, it cancels. So right turn, I don't know where the ring is, but right turn cancels. So that is fantastic. It's getting dark, but let's take it for a ride anyways. I gotta rotate the wheel a couple splines to the right. No big deal. This wheel feels really big. This guy here is about 14 inches. And this one across the outside is about 16 and a half. Thank you all for being here. Mac is going to continue to get better and better, I promise.